So, I'm going to talk about some movies again because that's what I do. So, I've been reading recently some Pulp Cthulhu for the Call of Cthulhu RPG. This is the rules for running it in a more pulp style. Now, I think, mentioned before, I think that Call of Cthulhu always, as an RPG, had a bit of a leaning toward pulp, and maybe a little bit less of the cosmic horror of Lovecraft and a little bit more of the kind of action-oriented game. Not as much as some, but maybe more than the original source material. Just as part of the nature of a tabletop RPG. Sitting around a table with a bunch of people, you're not necessarily always going to want to go through a single character's discovery of the truth behind the universe and then their eventual madness. You have to shake things up a little bit when you're running a game. But Pulp Cthulhu takes it to another level. This is really embracing the pulp aesthetic. This is getting into the two-fisted action of some of those early stories of the hard-boiled detectives, but also getting beyond the hard-boiled detectives into some of those characters like the Shadow or Doc Savage, those kind of guys who started out kind of the whole, they really were sort of the proto-superheroes, because when you look at Superman, he's obviously got Doc Savage in his DNA. And when you look at Batman, he's clearly got the Shadow in his DNA, and the Spider and some of the others. Even down to Superman's Fortress of Solitude, which comes right out of Doc Savage. Anyhow, I've been enjoying reading Pulp Cthulhu. I am starting to think that I would like to run this game. I've really been kind of thinking about just running just a very high pulp adventure game. And as part of that, I've also been trying to work on running published scenarios before. So I have this Cold Fire Within, which is a pulp campaign, relatively short campaign from what I understand. I'm pretty darn sure I'm going to run this relatively soon. And in thinking about that, I've been thinking about some inspirational movies for Pulp Cthulhu, and just in general thought I'd talk about some of my favorite pulp movies. And in this case, I'm going to go with sort of the neo-pulp, the noir, not noir, the modern day, but this is, of course, in the 90s. The 90s had this strange little flourish, this momentary explosion of these pulp adventure films. I think to some degree it was started by the Tim Burton Batman movie, but it had kind of been building before that. There had been a few others previously, but really with that Tim Burton Batman film at the end of the 80s, it kind of sparked this renaissance of old comic book stories. And comic books also, those Saturday morning strips and the daily strips, that's where a lot of times some of these characters became very popular. Maybe they started a radio show or they started in some pulp novels, but they became really popular as daily comics and Sunday comics, that kind of thing. So up first is going to be The Shadow with Alec Baldwin. I darn well love this movie. It got a lot of flack. I still hear people, they're just like, oh, it's silly, it's goofy. I think it's fantastic. I love Alec Baldwin in this. I love Penelope and Miller in this. It's got Jonathan Winters. It's got all kinds of great people. It really captures the vibe of the character. I love all of the stuff that this movie does. Finally, with the Blu-ray, you can see it in widescreen, because for the longest time, the only DVD I could find was full screen, which drove me absolutely bananas. I absolutely love The Shadow. This is a really, really fun movie. It's got, good score, good action. It's got just some great performances. Ton of fun. So The Shadow, highly recommended. I feel like I want to definitely tap into some of this if I'm going to run this campaign, especially with the Shadow's ability to cloud men's mind and that sort of thing. So The Shadow, big one for me. Another one, I was not necessarily as big a fan of this when it came out, but it's grown on me. Partially because I don't care for either of the two big leads, but that's Dick Tracy with Warren Beatty and Madonna. Just not a huge fan of either of them as actors or anything else. It has a great cast, like kind of a who's who playing the villains. You've got, I remember it was De Niro and, Pacino and a bunch of other people. Anyway, a bunch of people playing the villains in this. It really gets that bright, colorful comic thing by really exaggerating the comic aesthetic on screen, which I thought was very cool. But I also like the kind of wacky science, which again taps into the Pulp Cthulhu with the weird science with his watch and his proto television, all of that sort of thing. So it's a good deal of fun. I still find Warren Beatty to be a confusing star. Like how this guy got work is beyond me because the man lacks even an ounce of charisma. But there it is. Dick Tracy, I really enjoyed it, in spite of its possible problems. Now up next is one that apparently didn't do super well when it first came out, but is beloved now, which is perfectly understandable because it should be, and that is The Rocketeer. The Rocketeer is a ton of fun, based off the comic book series, which itself was inspired by these action-adventure serials and stories from the 30s and 40s. This... It just really, it's so good. It's so fun. The cast is great. The story's good. It's got lots of exciting action. It's got a lot of fun stuff. This should have been the beginning of like a really great series of films. 3 or 4 more of these movies would have been great. With, who is it? It's not Billy Connolly. I always forget this guy's name. Billy Campbell starring in it. He's great. He's got that kind of, down home, middle America kind of thing. And Jennifer Connelly was always great. She's maybe a little less of the Betty Page style than she's more of a almost an Ava Gardner kind of thing in here. But it works. It's really good. So Rocketeer, you've probably seen it. It's great. You should definitely see it if you haven't. And then I have a couple of bonuses. One that I liked, and I don't care what anybody says, is The Phantom. Now, The Phantom is a cool comic strip, but this movie was pretty goofy. It was maybe the least successful of these as far as the translation goes. I don't know, but I like it. I like the darn movie. Billy Zane is, he's fine. He's good. It has a really confusing role from Patrick McGowan. That's just like, why is he? I mean, good for him. He was still working, but it was really weird. It has a great Catherine Zeta-Jones. It's actually one of the only things I've ever really enjoyed Catherine Zeta-Jones in. Basically, this and Zorro, I think, might be about the end of it. But anyhow, I like this movie. It's got some great pulp adventure stuff in it. Again, is it a good movie? Probably not. No, not really. But I like it. That's okay. Now, leaving the 90s, pop a little bit into the earlier 2000s with Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow. This is a real late entry in this sort of attempted renaissance. Also, like many of the others, it was a box office failure, which is really sad because I absolutely love this movie. It is different. It just really leans heavy into the aesthetic. You see the robots that look like stuff out of the old Pulp magazine covers, and you've got guys flying a transforming plane, and they're fighting all these, weird critters. There's all kinds of crazy stuff. They basically go to Skull Island. They go to Shangri-La. There's flying aircraft carriers. It's great. This movie is awesome. I cannot recommend this highly enough. If you like the old Max Fleischer Superman cartoons, again, it harkens right back to those. Great stuff for really high adventure pulp. Which again, I think if this talks a little bit about the pulpometer. How pulpy, how over the top and wild do you want your game to be? Well, this is, if you want it to be really, really wild, Sky Captain the World of Tomorrow. Great stuff. So that's what I just wanted to talk about tonight with, thinking about Call of Cthulhu, Pulp Cthulhu, hopefully running a game of that sometime soon. And if I do, especially looking at Cold Fire Within, which really gets into strange mystical stuff, some real weird ideas, I think if I'm going to do this, I think I do want to crank that pulp right up. So, we'll see. Keep an eye on the space. All right. You know the drill. I'm an independent author. Always can use the help. So check out my stuff in the links below. I've probably got some reviews down there for you to take a look at, some links, affiliate links for some of these movies maybe, the usual stuff. Thanks a lot. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.